Hello and welcome to the DGMBF podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffman. Boffman, man, how are we?
I'm great actually. We had our first fight just before.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
What was it about?
Because I said, what did I say? I said something. I said I'm a better person. You said I'm a better person for it.
I was just being asked.
And I said I am a better person for it. And you said, well, it sounds better when I say it. And I said, no, I didn't mean it. Me commenting like I'm a better person than you. I meant I'm a better person than what I would be if I was on my phone all the time. And it was a bit of tension.
What's your screen time looking like at the moment? Past couple of weeks.
See, I've been sick, so it's bumped up.
Mm.
I'm probably. I think I got the nodie the other day that I was about 3.5 hours a day,
And that's bumped up.
Yeah.
I'm around about 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I haven't been sick.
See, but you
can't rationalise it.
You're sitting at a table, a desk for your job.
Mm.
So there's just so much more opportunity to do it. Whereas my job, I'm just constantly doing things and occupied with my hands, and using my phone at work is like I'm taking a break. I've got 2 seconds. I'm just going to check what's going on. There's less opportunity for me. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Okay, cool. I'll do more.
Yeah,
they're rookie numbers. I can just pump.
Yeah,
I can bump them up.
Bump them up. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, that was a nice little story. Should we start talking about the Western Conference over-unders?
The Left-End Conference over-unders? Yes, we shall.
It is the left.
It is the left.
So obviously, if you have listened to the last episode, congratulations. You know exactly what we're doing. And if you've listened to us do it for the past 3 or 4 years, or whatever we figured out it was, this is the second half of our over-under podcast, doing the Western Conference. So we're going to go through, we're using those exact same numbers that we found, what was it, 2 days before we did the East.
Yeah.
So these numbers are still, after the Donovan Mitchell trade and everything, but also we have to factor in that the first team we're going to talk about, the Phoenix Suns, have had some stuff come out about Robert Sarver, and then since yesterday, he's now going to sell the team, both that and the Phoenix Mercury. So that could influence these numbers. I would say this over-under will probably be a little bit higher if the Sarver stuff wasn't over the head. But other than that, all these numbers are still as of a week and a half ago. So should we get into it? Have I explained enough?
Yeah, you've explained enough, but you need to
explain myself
in a second. You need to explain yourself here. So we'll start with the Suns. The over-under is 52.5, and you've gone push. Famously, no NBA team has ever had a win total that wasn't a whole number. So it would seem that 52.5 is actually out of the equation for the Phoenix Suns to achieve this year, which means that's the genesis of the over-under concept, is that they set it at a half number and you say over or under because it physically cannot be the number that they set.
I feel like we've been through this before. Did this happen last year?
It did happen. It happened last year. You brazenly tried the 2-number push with the New York Knicks. And here you are again, doing it on my own team. So can you please explain yourself, this 52.5 push?
I just think it's such a good number, and I'm going to use the rules that we invented when we did the push with the New York Knicks last year. I say we because it was our podcast, even though I did it. So I'm going to take 52 and 53 wins, right? And would you be happy to give that to me? As opposed to taking 30 numbers on either side, would you be happy if I take just 2 specific numbers?
No, absolutely not.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it are you for real? Would you actually be upset if I take the push here?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be upset because this is a freaking basketball podcast. But I would say that it's against the rules because exactly last week, what was the Bucks over under? It was 51.5.
Yeah.
And I said, I think the Bucks are going to win 50 games.
I'll let you edit
so
that. So
I'm saying the Bucks are going to win either 50 or 51 games, but I still took the under.
Mm.
If you think they're going to win under, take the under. If you think they're going to win over, take the over. You don't get both numbers just because they set the line well. That's their job. Now you do your job.
All right. I'm going to delete it and pick over.
That's my boy.
But the reason I had the push It's because there's some shitty vibes around this team.
No, what are we talking about?
Rob Sava, all right,
Oof.
which has now been cleared up, but still existed.
Well, it's
and still
not
happened
actually
for 17
clear.
years.
It's not actually cleared up.
Well, it's going to be cleared. Like, it's no longer like, oh, if I'm going to be a free agent signing there, I'm going to have to deal with this absolute crap human being. It's like, okay, he is going. He is eventually selling.
That doesn't affect this season's win total.
I think it does. I think
no, but like the free agency stuff.
No,
and
well, maybe some buyouts.
Selling a team that's probably going to command $1.5 to $2 billion. Logistically, that doesn't just happen overnight. And as a Chelsea Football Club fan, I've lived this recently, where even when a sale is fast-tracked and prioritised by every party involved, including literally the government of the country, it still takes months. And it still is this cloud looming over every element of the franchise, of the club. And when we're looking at like 5 weeks, 5.5 weeks before the season starts. So the likelihood that this is a protracted exercise that stretches into the regular season is very high. When not only will Sava still be involved, but there'll also be uncertainty about who's going to...
Well, Sava's still got the suspension, so he's not going to be there. He's not going to be accepting a trophy.
No, but he's going to be involved in the sale of the team because it's still his asset, like financially speaking. So he's going to be heavily involved in that standpoint. He's also going to have choice about who he sells to, which may not necessarily just be to the highest bidder. I mean, who knows the motivations that this guy's going to have. Clearly, he doesn't want to sell the team. He's to some extent, his hand has been forced. Maybe I'll put my computer on... No, I can't put my computer on mute, can I?
I think you can, but let's not draw attention to it.
Anyway.
If we go quiet for the next 40 minutes, you'll know why.
I think that the vibes will extend into the season. The strange vibes. The strange vibes with Sava, let alone the other strange vibes going on.
Yeah, so the other strange... So I've got the vibes written here. I've got Rob Sava, the 18 extension / matching the Indiana offer. Chris Paul being on the court, obviously not. The Kardashian curse, because I think... Is he sort of still going out with Devin Booker?
I think they broke up, but Kendall Jenner has been saying stuff like, I'm more attracted to him than ever.
Yeah, right.
So that potentially...
I'm very happy to finish it at that sentence.
Well, I'm Googling it
anyway,
right now.
The Kardashian curse is still undefeated and still exists, even after you've broken up with someone.
Nah, they're back together.
All right, cool. And then Jake Crowder trade rumours, which seem purely financially motivated. Maybe the incoming owner / governor would be like, oh, I'm actually more willing to pay the tax than this last dude who was a bit of a cheap prick. So maybe the Jake Crowder rumours don't really exist anymore if the new person comes in, but the fact that they exist mean that there is an incentive to do it. So
yeah. I mean, to be honest, his name has been in potential trade rumors for a long time.
Yeah,
and not necessarily. That's not necessarily motivated by his play on the court. My read on it is that it's just time for Cam Johnson to be the starting four.
So why don't you just switch them? Why don't you just elevate one and put the other one on the bench?
Well, because we don't actually really need like Crowder kind of declining and he's not as good as he was 2 seasons ago. He's getting older. He's doing less and less off the dribble. He's shooting more and more threes without actually getting better at them. He is someone who still has appeal around the league for any number of teams looking to add like a tough veteran role player. He just happens to be at a position where we don't actually need we don't need him to be our fourth wing, which might end up being the case.
But you're not going to get an upgrade on that spot.
We're not going to get an upgrade on that spot from the trade.
Yeah.
But if we're recruiting maybe an asset and a little bit of space under the tax, that then means that there's more space to dip back into the tax if we wanted to hypothetically add like a big four. Because we're replete with small fours and big wings who can play the four and whatever Dario Saric is these days, whether he's a 4 or a 5. But we don't have like a big four who can shoot a three and put the ball on the floor, which is kind of what we've been linked with over the last 2 seasons, this iteration of the team. So I think trading Crowder out opens up space for Cam Johnson in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And space for us to make another move.
Yeah. All right. I believe that. But then you also won 64 games last year.
Oh, yeah.
So this number puts you down like at least 12 wins. Like that's a huge drop for a team that is mostly young getting better. So that's why I've gone
every
push.
single player is returned.
Yeah,
like everyone is returned.
Took you a minute, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like it was going to be that way for a while.
Yeah, okay, so that's why I've gone the push/over. What have you done?
I've gone over because there's no way I'm not going over on my own team. Although I will say, this whole Sava selling the team thing should be like universally well received. Get this guy out of here. But then the fact that the first name linked was Jeff Bezos. I'm like, Jeff Bezos just has like $2 billion to burn. He could just do it. And if money was the only thing that Bob Sava was interested in, Bezos could just pay $4 billion for the team, not even make a dent in his budget. And I'm thinking, damn, can I really like root for a team that's like owned by Jeff Bezos?
Well, I mean, you're rooting for a team owned by Rob Sava.
I know.
As long as they're just like quiet owners, it's always in the back of your head, but then you're like...
I'm just struggling with sports at the moment to go a bit broader.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if we have any overseas listeners, or even interstate listeners who don't really care about the footy, we're obviously in Victoria, where footy is king. And there have been these explosive allegations, which are almost certainly true, about previous actions targeted towards young Indigenous footy players by Hawthorn Football Club, perpetrated in a large part by the current coach of North Melbourne and the current coach of Brisbane, which is my team. And the details of those reports are absolutely harrowing. And it just sucks, man. It just sucks that sports puts these people like in position to succeed. Like,
I mean, but at least this stuff's coming out, and at least this stuff's getting called out, because like this wasn't happening. We're only young, but back in the day, you never hear about these reports happening in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, and it's like, and that's why this dude had to step down. It's like at least it's coming out now, and something is possibly changing. And if it doesn't, then fuck.
Well, I mean, it is like on a broader picture, it is great, but
it sucks to hear.
For someone who wants to occasionally just tap into the illusion that sports is like all good and wants to just like cheer for your footy team.
You want it to be a Toyota,
or your or you just want to be able to go like cheer for my basketball team without like being like, oh well, all of the money from the team goes to this guy who was like an actual nonce and who was racist and sexist and bullying pregnant women. Yeah. Anyway, that's just my little rant about what's been on my mind.
Well, no. Before we keep on going, I just want to say, and I put this in the group chat the other day, and I feel like I didn't get the most welcoming response because it wasn't a welcoming thing. But you've had a bit of a shit run with sports, haven't you? Like you've had Chelsea with the Abramovich, Russian owner, Sava, obviously that whole Sava saga, and now Fags, the aforementioned coach of the Brisbane Lions. What's going on with the Panthers? Have they done something?
Well, I'm kind of...
You're off the footy.
The Panthers got sold like 3 years ago because the owner was had like a Donald Sterling moment essentially and was forced to sell.
Yeah. But you're not into the NFL.
I'm kind of off the NFL these days.
What's your favourite netball team?
My favourite netball team?
Maybe
better luck next time. Division 1 Wednesday night, Clifton Hill. It's my favourite netball team.
Hey, we can only hope that's the shining hope for social justice in sports.
I played 2 games last night. Back to back, 6 and 6:45. No, 6 and 6:40. It's my first exercise in 2 weeks after my sickness, and I was dead. I'm coughing, I'm wheezing, I'm like every quarter break I'm smashing the Ventolin just trying to like get myself back into it. Crazy team. I probably shouldn't have bitten off more than I could chew first up.
Well, I mean, it's always going to be hard the first one back, so you may as well do an extra amount of work.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I did.
Speaking of an extra amount of work, that's a bad segue, but we've got the Los Angeles Clippers, whose number is set at an identical 52.5. I've gone over with the LA Clippers. What have you done?
I've gone over as well.
Yeah, are you confident about that?
Yeah.
Do you reckon these guys will be a higher seed than the Phoenix Suns at the end of the day?
I was thinking about my playoff breakdown where I envision all of these teams landing. And I didn't really get to a point where I felt comfortable stratifying the top four, but I felt confident in who I thought would be the top four. And the Clippers are definitely a top four seed. And I think they're definitely winning in the mid-50s. I don't know about whether they're going to be better than the Suns, because the Suns are a proven commodity that's just brought everyone back. All the pieces are, whereas the Clippers have more question marks because yes, they're adding Kawhi to a team that won 42 games last season. Or was it 46? I think it was 46, which is pretty fucking impressive when you think about.
And then they lost in the play-in, but they didn't have.
It was 42, but Paul George missed time, and the list is not great on the Clippers when you get down to it. Actually, there are some average guys playing pretty big roles. Adding Kawhi to that seems like an absolute no-brainer. But
just can't say 50 games of Kawhi, probably.
Yeah, exactly. 50 games of Kawhi, and also Kawhi is getting older. Kawhi is not a spring chicken. I think he's 30.
Well, can I just say, I don't know how much stock he put into it, and I probably put 5% stock into it. He looks really good in workouts. I don't know if you've seen those videos.
You ever heard of Ben Simmons? I have.
I know, but Kawhi looks bigger and stronger than he ever has before.
No, for sure, but I'm just saying when the guy's over 30 and he's missed a full season, a full season plus, with an injury, you can never pen him in and just say this is the guy we're getting before, especially when the guy you were getting before was playing 60 games a season because he was managing his loads.
Me win.
But that all being said, I think that the addition of Kawhi even for 50 games
helps you win those 50 games.
This is going to be a really good team.
And obviously John Wall helps with the point guard depth, and this team is just so deep. So I've also gone the over. They've got Robert Covington, they've got Nick Batum, they've got
Norm Powell's out there.
Norm Powell's, let's call him a 6 man of the year candidate.
Well, and Luke Kennard also a 6 man of the year type performer last year.
Paul George is still on the team. Paul George was injured.
I love how he mentioned Luke Kennard and Norm Powell before he mentioned Paul George. Way off.
I just don't hate him as much as everyone else does.
Nah, it's just funny to hate him.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm not laughing.
If we're not getting a bit of humour out of our NBA fandom, what are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing a podcast pretty full on. All right, we've both hit the over. I don't think there's too much to talk about there. Golden State Warriors number is set a game below the two teams beforehand. Their number is 51.5. What have you done here with this number?
I've gone over. This is the third of my top four that I'm confident is going to be there.
Yeah.
This is the season for the Warriors. Before it all potentially gets to be hairy with contract extensions and contract extensions for the young players
is
and contract
Big Jim
extensions
good at basketball?
for the old players. Well, Big Jim doesn't really matter.
Well, if he's good, this number's obviously
who matters is Clay, Draymond, Wiggins, and Jordan Poole, which are 4 of your 5 best players.
And they're all going to be free agents.
And they're all going to want varying degrees of money, and some of them are older than others, and some of them are better than others. But that doesn't matter for this season because they're also going to take the court together. So I think 51.5, it's an easy over. I'm assuming that you've gone over as well.
I've gone over as well. But just a little sidebar there on the extension talks. Jordan Poole, I think if you can get him to sign anything right now, just do it. Because and he needs to be signed as a rookie. The extension needs to be before opening night. So there's still time, but it's not looking like those talks are progressing far at all. There's been a few sort of, let's call them dynamic press releases, or as they would refer to them as newsbreakers or articles from some of the athletic guys.
Dynamic press release, is that an industry term?
No, it's just something I come up with, like the Sham stuff, where Shams will write a story. It's a dynamic press release.
Well, that's great. You should
trademark that.
Journo stuff from you.
And they sort of just dance around the Jordan Poole thing where they say, the front office is hoping to get a contract done. But don't let this go into restricted free agency. No, not even just for the fact that if you sign Jordan Poole to a deal, that'll be extremely good value because it's going to be a rookie extension. It's not like a super max extension. And you're probably not going to get him on the max anyway. I don't think he's worth the max. I think if you go to restricted free agency, then someone like Orlando is like, yeah, fuck it, we'll give him the max. We got all the money coming out the wazoo. So just get him on anything below the max right now. You don't have him worrying. Like, you just take care of your employee. Just say he's not going to be worried whatsoever. If Klay Thompson and you head into free agency next year, and if Andrew Wiggins gets blown away by an offer from someone else and as an unrestricted free agent, all of a sudden you've got 4 more years of Jordan Poole, who's going to be starting 2, and Klay's your starting 3 moving forwards. So you don't want to risk the worst possible case scenario of he just gets blown away in free agency with a restricted offer, and then you're like, oh crap, do we have to match that, or whatever it may be, and then Wiggins leaves anyway. But yeah, in terms of this actual on-court product, obviously we know the guys at the top can do it, especially when they're healthy. JaMychal Green, Dante DiVincenzo, good regular season pickups. Steve Kerr, 2.2, so it'll be exciting to see what he does.
Steve Kerr, 2.2. The evolution continues.
Apparently, they're bringing in a new rule where if the ball lands at his feet while on the bench and he shoots it, it'll count. So that'll be interesting to see how we mould that into the game. Big Jim should be good at basketball. If he's not, we can still win a title. But if he is, that's found money from a regular season point of view, because then our centre rotation is the Iron Man Kevon Looney and someone actually fucking behind him. And Moses Moody looked good in Summer League, and Jonathan Kuminga did not. So, I don't know, take what you will for that. Do you see, now, I think we're both pretty confident in the over here. Do you see this team sniffing 60 wins?
Not necessarily, because this is another team that was top 4 last season and is running it back. And what we saw last season in the regular season is that, and obviously there was a Draymond injury and Klay working back to consider. But this last season's team wasn't a team that was just like a 2016-esque juggernaut that was just going to roll out and everything works like clockwork, because there are younger players being incorporated here. There's I think greater fluctuation, and greater fluctuation is not something that generally results in more wins.
I mean, I'd rather greater fluctuation than, oh shit, that's a lot of Damian Lee tonight.
No, for sure. It's definitely we got
better players.
Your championship odds are way higher, but I think your odds of reaching 60 wins by incorporating a whole bunch of second-year players.
It's not perfect. There's no David West and Sean Livingston off the bench that's just going to win every single matchup.
Yeah, and also it goes the other way. Guys are getting a little bit older. The Draymond and Klay injury risk is actually real. I mean, Draymond missing half of last season was not,
and not looking good after his back.
That's not whoa, how could that have happened? That'll never happen again. It's no, actually, this is an undersized 4 who's played 10 years in the league, and he's getting old. And Klay, you would say that his 2 injuries, the Achilles and the ACL, are just aberrations, the things that can just happen in an instant, which is true. But he's also got that wear and tear on his body. He's also got surgically repaired bits and bobs. So I think there's too much variance here between the young guys and the potential injury risk to the older guys to say 60 wins. But I think mid-50s for sure.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on to the next team, the Sacramento Kings, whose number's set at a extremely low 32.5. I don't know if you've been on Twitter, but apparently the Kings are going to be really good. We were hearing a lot of that around Summer League, which, as you know, is extremely representative of the NBA.
Yeah, when one player on the Kings Summer League team does really well, it fucking means that he's going to average 20.
But as you know, I'm excited to see how this starting lineup plays. I'm excited to watch the Sacramento Kings, as you say, for the first quarter of the season. So I'm hitting the over here. I'm rooting for him. I'm putting a little bit I'm putting a little bit of a vested interest in this team being good, because
deja vu.
Now I've got my name here saying over that, I want to prove myself right. I want to prove to you that I'm right. I think that their starting lineup is a top 15 starting lineup in the league.
Famously, it's only important to have 5 players.
But and then you look at the depth. They've got Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, and Rashawn Holmes. 3 good players coming off the bench. You couldn't name 3 good players coming off the bench for him last year.
You couldn't name 3 good players last year.
And the number's 32.5. It's cough. It's not like they're set at it's not 41. You know.
No, it's definitely not 41.
So what have you done?
Look, the way that my numbers have all shaken out, when looking at like who's going to make the playoffs and who's going to be in the play-in race, it doesn't really make sense for the Kings to be over this number for me. So I've actually gone under. Now, if this in an ideal world, in a vacuum where I don't have to worry about anybody else, which obviously I do in this exercise, I would go over this number. However, if this number was 2 games higher, I would go under. Because I don't think... yeah, well, I'm not a dirty rascal. I don't think the Kings are going to be good. I'm extremely skeptical about anything going on with this team defensively because as much...
They got Mike Brown.
Yeah, sick, bro. As much as you love this starting lineup, the 5 is terrible defensively.
Yeah.
The 3 is a rookie.
He's the 4.
Well, okay, well, him and Harry Barnes. The 4 is a rookie whom we've never seen play against an NBA team before. And the 1 is bad on D. De'Aaron Fox is like not good defensively.
Yeah, that's
There's
fine.
also questions about whether De'Aaron Fox is just good, period.
Yeah.
There's also questions about whether Domantas Sabonis is good enough to be more than a 6 seed, you know, in the East. So a 6 seed in the East comparatively, like where we are now, is going to be like the 10 seed.
Yeah.
And yeah, Malik Monk, Sean Holmes, Kevin Huerter are like good quality depth pieces, but they're also in many ways 1.5 dimensional players. You know, there's a reason why Kevin Huerter was like the odd man out. Rashawn Holmes is really in Atlanta. I should say Rashawn Holmes is really good, but somewhat defensively challenged. Malik Monk has had one good season.
Yeah,
I'm just skeptical. You know, I'm just skeptical of this all coming together. And
aren't you just excited to watch it and see what the hell happens?
Nah, because I'm a busy person with limited time, and I don't have time to worry about these guys when I'm worrying about everything else.
All right. That's so fair.
I'm reluctantly going under. I'm committing to the under, but like in an ideal world, I'd go slightly over. But you know.
But yeah, this isn't an ideal world.
You're telling me. See, conversation 10 minutes ago.
The next number is the Los Angeles Lakers, whose number is set at 45.5.
Under.
That is
Under.
Fucked. Yes, I have also hit the under. I actually, when I was typing out this sheet, before I had finished the number, I saw it started with a 4 and typed under and then went back to the sheet.
Yeah.
There's no way that the Lakers can trick us to go over again after everything they did last season. There's no way they're going to be over 500. Like,
but did you hear they got Russell Westbrook? He's pretty good.
And like they got Dennis Schroeder. Does he still hate Anthony Davis?
Did he hate Anthony Davis?
Yeah. He threw one alley-oop to him that whole season. They didn't get along. That was the thing. AD's like, oh yeah, I don't like playing with him. Also, hasn't been good at basketball. Was essentially a celery dump.
Oh, I don't know if you were watching the
Houston Rockets.
No,
Germany.
But he was...
Yeah, I mean, I tell you who else was good in Eurobasket? Fucking Juancho Hernan Gomez.
No, he's got a different name.
Bo Cruz.
The Cruise Missile.
Fuck
the
that.
Cruise Missile.
Yeah, so they got that. I obviously got Patrick Beverley, who I think has been a good player for the past couple of seasons, but he's not dragging you to 50 wins.
No, but yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt you.
They've also got Kendrick Nunn coming back from injury, but he came back from injury, which kept him out for a whole entire season. Who's their starting 3? Is it like Max Christie or that dude? The white shooter who they drafted in the second round last year.
Austin Reeves.
Yeah, is it Austin Reeves starting at the 3?
Oh,
assuming LeBron's at the 4, or at least defending 4s.
I hope not.
Yeah. Well, that's that. And also LeBron and AD are injury questions. Did you see AD was playing 2K on opening night?
Bit of toque.
Yeah, did you see that? He was playing 2K for like the official 2K account or maybe just like his Twitch stream. And he's like, yeah, I'll just do like a play now. And he was using like the Lakers. They were playing against someone. And he was controlling Anthony Davis. And he went up for a rebound, landed awkwardly and got injured for the rest of the game.
Wow, if that's not a portent of doom, I don't know what is. When I rudely tried to interrupt you before, as you and listeners will know, based on my reaction to the Brooklyn Nets experiment of the last 3 seasons, I'm a big believer in the off-the-court stuff. And I don't think you can underestimate the absolute chemistry bomb that is going to occur with this team having Patrick Beverley and Russell Westbrook
but they shook hands.
They shook hands, it's done, on the same team, and how each of them will react 20 games into the season when it's clear that Russ is washed and he's been benched in the fourth for Patrick Beverley, who's coming in to just play a role. A, how Russ is going to feel about that. And B, how Patrick Beverley is going to try so hard to not let him know about it, but will be unable to stop himself and will end up letting him know about it. And all of a sudden, implosion. I know LeBron is the greatest. I know that he has a long career of managing relationships between himself, agents, teammates, staff, but this is too far. This runs too deep, and this team, like, even, you know, you laid out the basketball reasons why they're going to fucking suck, but like chemistry wise, this team is going to absolutely implode, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, that's going to be fun. I actually haven't thought about that because as soon as I saw that they were united on the same team, I was just like, I don't want to go on the Bluebird. I don't want to go on Bleacher Report. I don't want to hear about it. I know everything that's happened, but please don't tell me again. Then they did that media day before media day where they all just rocked up wearing Lakers stuff and were just like high-fiving. And it's like... and also the fact that they cannot trade Russell Westbrook. Like it would be done by now. It would be done by now if it was done. And whether that just be Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic, which I would actually think about hitting the over if they just swapped him out for Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic. Wouldn't pick him to win a title, but I think it would make them closer to a title contender. The fact that hasn't been done yet, and they're willing to give up the 29 pick, like 27 and 29. It just can't happen. Like there's no one else that's going to take that deal. So, you know, I think Russ is on the team for the whole entire year, and because of that and a few other things, they're not going to sniff 500.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Utah take that deal at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man, and it gets in the way of Colin Sexton's development.
Mate, Colin Sexton is development. Colin Sexton doesn't need development. Colin Sexton averaged 24 points per game on respectable shooting splits in his third season in the NBA. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a team like Utah jump in. I think that they're the only team that really makes sense. OKC wouldn't do it because even though it fits their MO, it's just too fraught.
Yeah.
And he's
not enough.
He's expiring after this season.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Utah can take that in, send back Sexton and whatever.
No, it would be Mike Conley. I think.
Well, whatever. Well, maybe if Mike Conley's going to be actually on the team by then. Utah is not done shedding assets. So whatever collection of contracts is still left on that roster. That includes probably realistically at least one veteran player. Utah can say, we'll take Russell Westbrook for 3 months, tell him to stay home and take 2 future Lakers picks for the trouble, for sure.
Let's move on to the Memphis Grizzlies, whose number's set at 48.5. I've gone under. What have you done?
I've gone under as well, and I'm not sure about it.
I'm pretty sure about it. They've got no Jaren Jackson for at least half the season. And I know you're not the biggest fan of Jaren Jackson Jr., but he is he's a really big part of their offense and their defense. And
he is a huge part of their D, at least.
And,
sure.
And after you traded him to me in fantasy, he was a great part of the offense, right?
No,
he did shoot the ball well.
Yeah, he does shoot the ball well, which obviously unlocks a lot of stuff. My issue with him as like a basketball player is that he's kind of like the second coming of Kristaps Porzingis offensively, because he Just has no other avenue. He's got a loose handle. He's not strong enough to take smaller players off.
But I think at least he knows that. It's not like he went to New York and they're just like, oh my god, you're Patrick Ewing too. It's like, I think he knows that he is just a shooter. And that makes him, I think, better. The fact that he knows that he's just going to be...
Does Taylor Jenkins know that, drawing up 3 consecutive plays for him in the final game of the playoffs?
I think that's just like some young coach just being like a nice little happy rookie. Like, oh, come on. Like, you're not a rookie coach, but a happy coach.
How old are you?
24. How old is Jared Jackson?
I'm also 24.
I think he's 23.
And you would say... don't draw up a play for Jaren Jackson in the last 2 minutes of a playoff game.
Yeah, but
Taylor Jenkins is 38, so he's 14 years older than the both of us, and he didn't even know that. So, I mean, I guess he's a young coach, but he's not young.
All right. How about this? So, Jaren Jackson, whatever you think about him, who's their starting 4/ or closing 5 now that he's not there?
Santi Almada.
Santi Aldama. Brandon Clark or Xavier Tillman, right? Like, It's whether you think Brandon Clark can do a good facsimile, you've still got a hole where Brandon Clark was part of one of the most efficient bench units now. Like, is that going to be Santi Aldama? And also, Dylan Brooks is still on the team, and I still hate him for that hit on Gary Payton II. And I just don't think he's very good at basketball. I think Golden State won that Memphis series because Dylan Brooks only got suspended for 1 game.
Dylan Brooks also a prime candidate to get traded this season.
Who wants him?
Not me.
I mean, there's heaps of people in front office older than me. I think we can assume that. And even I know that he's bad at basketball. But we've both hit the under, even if Jar has an MVP level season again, and even if Jaren Jackson comes back and just picks up where he left off. That's half the season.
Is Triple J meniscus? What's he...
I actually don't know. He's done everything, hasn't he? He's like the new Amari Stoudemire, but not homophobic.
Well, not homophobic that we know.
Yeah, well, there's always some
4 to 6 months after stress fracture in the foot. So he's not.
He's had everything.
So he's not back until the new year. Is what that 4 to 6 month timeline means. The reason why I'm hesitant about this is because this is a team that's had success with or without their best players over the last 2 seasons. And this is a team that also won 56
Spurs West.
Yeah, Spurs East. Because they're actually east from San Antonio.
Oh, true.
Anyway, that's a bit of American geography for you. They won 56 games last year. Jar missed time, Triple J missed time. Obviously not half the season. But I just am hesitant to say that they're going to fall 8 games behind their pace when Jar potentially will be just as good, if not better. We could be looking at improvements from a guy like Zaire Williams, who's someone who they have kind of hoped can grow into a bigger offensive role. They've got all of these other guys who have shown they can step in when needed. Your Clarks, your Tillmans. They did get rid of D'Anthony Melton, who was awesome. But I'm still going under, but I'm apprehensive about it because you generally don't see teams like this just lose 8 games. 8 games worse that
Yeah, you don't. But then most teams would still have their second best player. It's not like we're saying the Phoenix Suns are going to fall 12 games, right?
No, I know, but I'm just imagining that everybody else on the roster is either capable of just doing exactly what's needed of them, or primed to take a step forward given more opportunity. Especially when you've got an All-NBA talent, an MVP talent, anchoring it all.
Yeah.
Regardless. I think my approach to this exercise, both this year and historically, has often been to argue against myself. I've still gone under, and I've still spent 7 minutes.
A couple of times today.
Yeah, I've still spent 7 minutes trying to convince everyone why going under is a great idea. Why going under is the wrong idea, and I'm still going under.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the next team, Dallas Mavericks, whose number's set at also 48.5, which is. Some of these West ones are it seemed like
it's a bit high.
The Pacific Division was sort of spot on with all those numbers. I even pushed on the Suns. But yeah, 48.5 for Dallas Mavericks. What have you done?
I've gone under. What have you done?
I've also gone under, but I'm not too confident in it because
interesting.
I think they were a 50-win team last year, right? Once you trade off the zinger, if you start that season with Brunson, Dinwiddie, Luka, and then just Maxi Kleber's running around, I think that's a 50-win team. obviously losing Brunson hurts, and we've talked about that, in depth. And I think like obviously maybe he's not worth that price tag, but he still lost a good player. But like now it's like it's just Luka, and could he average a 30-point triple-double, win the MVP, something we said he's going to do for the past 2 years, and just come in and like if you've got a guy like that, like like we saw with Nikola Jokic, but maybe with just a little bit better of a supporting cast, where instead of you losing Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, you've got Christian Wood, who like we'll talk about him in a second. You've got Spencer Dinwiddie, who I think is a really good player. They've got those pieces there. I think this could be like a Kobe Bryant-esque season from Luka. But yeah, I've just done what you've done, so I've talked myself out of it. So I've still hit the under though. But why have you hit the under?
Well, I thought about that angle as well. And the thing about those Kobe Bryant-esque efforts, or a Russell Westbrook-esque effort when he won the MVP in 2016-17, those teams actually weren't that good.
Yeah.
Kobe's best seasons were when he was playing with Shaq or when he was playing with Powell and Lamar Odom. Like Kobe by himself never, pulled his team to 55 wins by playing on his own and averaging 35 points a game. It just didn't happen because it's impossible to do. When Westbrook won the MVP with his 30-point triple-double, they were the 6th seed. He was the lowest seeded MVP in like 30 years.
Since Moses Malone.
So this is an argument that Luka's not going to win the MVP rather than that Dallas is not going to be a great team.
Yeah.
But I actually am, I'm skeptical of the supporting cast. I don't think that it's a better supporting cast than Denver.
You're going to love my next point.
I actually think that in many ways they're the opposite of what I said about the Warriors, where the Warriors, this is the year, because there's so much uncertainty on the other side of this season. But right now there's so much certainty. You've proven that this exact cast of characters can win a championship, and now everyone's back and everyone wants to do it again. The Mavs is this is the season that they know they're taking a step back, and the uncertainty on the other side is replaced by possibility, because next season you've got free agency, you've got expiring contracts, you've got cap space, trade assets to come in. But this season feels like the season when they win 46 games, and Luka averages the 30-point triple-double.
Yeah.
But I'm very skeptical of Spencer Dinwiddie in a lead,
like a full season,
a lead role, not just a full season, but Spencer Dinwiddie as the point guard has never gone well. The only time it has gone well is that half season in Brooklyn where he was killing it before he tore his ACL. But even when we were doing the podcast at that point when he was killing it, you look behind the numbers. He was averaging 20 and 6, and the Nets were winning games. Look behind the numbers, and he's always been an awful shooter, an awful finisher. And I think his success last season was somewhat akin to someone like Dennis Schroeder, the season that he had in OKC, where he was playing next to CP3 and next to SGA, and he averaged 18 points and 6 assists, and he looked awesome because he's splitting the responsibilities that he would then go on to have to manage himself. And we've seen what happened with Schroeder since he left that situation. We've seen what has happened to Dinwiddie before Dallas. And now that Brunson is gone and he's the lead non-Luka guard, I'm skeptical of that. We've talked in the past about my view on Christian Wood as a player and my view on Christian Wood as a fit for this team, and I'm just not into that either. And then you kind of strip it back and it's okay, Tim Hardaway Jr. after a long layoff and another year older, maybe. Yeah. Dorian Finney-Smith as a high usage offensive player. No. Maxi Kleber the same. No. JaVale McGee.
Well, let's just say Christian Wood. What do you think Christian Wood can do as his team starting maybe 4?
I think what Christian Wood can do is at odds with what Luka and Dallas need from their bigs. Because Christian Wood, he's not going to rim roll and he's not going to shoot effectively. What he is going to do is try and ISO in the short to mid post, get to the rim with the ball in his hands. And that's not really suitable for this team where Luka has the ball in his hands, and if you get the ball in your hands, you're either giving it up immediately or you're shooting. He's kind of
a face-up center /4. Yeah.
Yeah, he needs the ball. He needs to get to his spots and the spots that he occupies are not spots where you can really be fed the ball from your guards.
Yeah, and you don't want him just standing sort of in the high post where Luka's like, hold on, I'm doing a pick and roll with JaVale over here. I just spent the past couple of weeks listening to a lot of podcasts of a lot of people who are struggling to find topics, and a lot of people have talked themselves into the Christian Wood experience and have tried to talk me into it being a listener. And I've heard every angle of the Christian Wood, the Christian Wood experiment, let's say, for Dallas, and I've heard some of the most positive takes you can hear about one human being, and I'm just not convinced by any of them. At some point, he's a 6'9" center. He's a smaller guy.
Well, he's a 6'9" center who might play the 4
next to a rim runner in JaVale.
And if he's playing the 5, he's going to be playing next to Maxi Kleber. And I know Maxi Kleber on offense will space out to the corners and be a pick and pop big, so that's not a problem. But Christian Wood and Maxi Kleber on D, Maxi Kleber is a better rim protector than Christian Wood. So if Christian Wood has to defend 4s, you don't want to go up against the Clippers and Christian Wood has to defend Marcus Morris on the perimeter.
Or Kawhi.
Or any number of teams that have a 4 who can put the ball on the floor.
I think almost 30 teams do.
Seriously, I think that it could be really a recipe for disaster both offensively and defensively, because he just doesn't complement anyone else on the roster.
Yeah.
He doesn't complement anyone defensively, and he's kind of at odds with the way that Luka wants to play. And the way that Luka wants to play has seen him be, All-NBA first team 3 times and make the conference finals. And he's 23 years old. So the way that Luka wants to play, you should play.
Yeah. A little bit of a depressing situation for a dude who's very good. But
I think that what gets maybe lost in this era of going all in once you realize you got a good young guy.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing with the Pelicans with Davis and Zion. We're so used to seeing like young players really thrive, and we forget that for most of NBA history, young players who have been elite and who've even been on really good teams, they don't just make the conference finals every year.
Yeah.
There are ebbs and flows. There are seasons where things just kind of naturally have to take a step back. And you're doing that not because not necessarily always because you've just terribly mismanaged everything. Although I think it's clear that the Porzingis trade was mismanagement. But because sometimes that's just what happens. You need to take a step back so that you can let some contract expire and free up some cap space, or let your next round of draft picks come into use, or figure out who is the unhappy star during the season that you can trade for on the cheap. Those kind of things sometimes need to happen. And it's not the end of the world if the Mavericks win 44 games and lose in the first round, because next season they have Luka and possibility, and that's worth a lot.
We've talked a lot about the Dallas Mavericks, but I've got one final point that I really want to mention, and we can just sort of have a smug little grin and move on, or you can say something. But I just want to start right now the Dorian Finney-Smith Defensive Player of the Year conversation for next year.
That's a smug grin and move on, I reckon.
I think if this team wins a lot, he could be, obviously Luka's going to be doing a lot, but he could be in the top 5 of Defensive Player of the Year next year. Smug grin, move on. Sweet. San Antonio Spurs, their number's set at 23.5. Now, I'm going to say possibly the exact same thing for a lot of these teams down at the bottom of the West, because while we've got heaps of highs at the top, we've got lots of lows. But incentive to lose for the San Antonio Spurs will have them going under this number. What have you done with the Spurs?
I've gone over, but I'm looking at it now, and I'm actually going to change it to an under.
So officially changing that?
Officially changing it. Because I have no... I don't really have a lot of faith in the Spurs' ability to be really bad. Because institutionally winning is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about this organisation. But then you look at the roster and you're like, yeah, actually, this is probably not a 24-win team.
I mean, Jakob Poeltl's their best player. And I said he was a dark horse Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year.
Yeah, you were killing it with these dark horse Defensive Player of the Year candidates.
It's pretty dark. You can't see him at night.
A black stallion.
But I think if your argument is that he's so good on defense, they're going to win 24 games, you can do that, Dante. But
power to you.
I'm going the under.
Josh Primo breakout season.
Well, I was just no one on this roster has all-star upside apart from maybe Malachi Branham.
Okay.
And fuck me, that is a sentence.
Yeah, see, I don't know what to make of that sentence. I don't know what to do with that sentence.
We could just say under and move on.
Like under and move on to another team that I suspect is an under and move on.
Before we under and move on, I think Pop is really invested in rebuilding and just like developing guys. And from all the reports of him like calling the rookies, being like, "Come, welcome," like we're just going to learn how to play basketball the right way. I want to set things up for the future. That screams, we're going to get that big, tall French guy next offseason. Or Scoot. Anyway. Houston Rockets also set at 23.5. That's identical to the Spurs. So the first thing I've got written here is incentive to lose. I've gone under as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a hard under.
The only issue I have is that this team I've written down could be pretty cute / mega vibey without Christian Wood. Young dudes playing fast. Obviously, we had that stat in the group chat the other day. Did they lead the league in free throws?
I don't know.
Like just getting to the rim. Maybe a good. Like you talk about all-star upside for the Spurs. Like there is at least all-star upside with like some of the best guys in a Houston uniform. And like they're all young. They've got Boban Marjanovic, which just you can probably put him in every team, and they'll just be a happier team. I think that's like a pretty safe bet.
Does that mean they're shooing to trade for Tob Harris mid-season?
No, I actually don't really want to laugh at that.
You don't want to laugh at that? Why? Because it's a harrowing prospect, or because it wasn't a funny joke?
I won't tell you the answer to that.
Woof.
So you don't think about going over this one at all?
Nah, not really. They won 20 games last year, so this would be a 4-win jump, and they've got no incentive to win. And I also think that it could be vibey without Christian Wood there, but there was also that like 18-game losing streak last season, and period where it was like Steven Silas has lost control of the locker room, and like this guy doesn't know how to coach, and like even the young players are like throwing a revolt over his coaching methods. That stuff doesn't just go away because you traded Christian Wood.
Also, Christian Wood, I think, cops a little bit of like he cops it a little bit in terms of being a negative chemistry guy. But you're right. Like if Steven Silas was on the fucking hot seat for a team that's tanking, that's horrible. Yeah,
well, and the fact that he was on the hot seat both on the court and off the court. I just think the intangibles for this team to like put everything together are not there. Whereas for someone like OKC, who we'll get to later, like I could actually see the intangibles there, the institutional knowledge, the culture kind of coming together to make something greater than the sum of its parts. I think that Houston is incentivized to be less than the sum of its parts, and I also think that the collection of parts will be less than the sum of the parts. So I've gone under.
Cool. Let's move on to the last team in the Southwest Division, the New Orleans Pelicans, whose number's set at 44.5. And I think this is so close to what they will be, which will be early 40s.
I think so too.
But I've still hit the under, because I think it'll be 41 or 42.
Okay, well, I have gone over, but I'm hitting like mid-40s.
How about we both push this?
You're just addicted to the push. You are addicted.
I'm not a big pool guy. But can I just say, this would be 12.5 wins better than last year. Is Zion worth 12.5 wins? Is Zion able to play 82 games to be worth 12.5 wins?
Well, he's not worth 12.5 wins. That's the wrong way of looking at it, statistically speaking, because this team, post-trade deadline, the CJ edition of this team was actually much better. Yeah. So we're looking at, like, if we look at what the win percentage of post-trade deadline and playoffs Pelicans was... we need to say how many games over is that, and that would be much less than 12 games. So you're saying like is Zion worth 6 games, and definitely worth 6 games. Also factor in improvement from some of the young guys. You get Kira Lewis Jr. back.
Oh, that's not a dot point, Dante.
It's a possibility for a dot point. It's saying that if you get something good from him, it's found money.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't, well, it doesn't change the calculus because we did it last year without it. And same with Dyson Daniels, the 8th overall pick.
Yeah.
And a notable Australian. For a league that's crying out for Australians who are rootable. I could have worded that better. Australians who are fun to root for. Because at the moment we've only got Paddy Mills.
And Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
I
Ingles is
like
not
him more
really
than you.
currently
Again.
in the NBA. I mean, there's Jock Landale as well.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you get anything from those two young guards, completely found money, and that means maybe they had a win each. Over the course of the season. This team was really good at the end of last season. You add Zion. I did deliberate about this because I wouldn't be surprised if it was like between 40 to 44. But I'm thinking like 45, 46.
Yeah, I think 43, 44. So you've gone the over. I'm going to put that in on the sheet. I was going to say like the second half of CJ is great, but because you've got CJ, because you've got Zion, you've got Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, who I don't love on defense, I think like the best case scenario for this team is they're a top 5 offense, but I don't see them being a top 15 defense. Like there's no world where Herb Jones could just drag him to a top really good defense. Like I love Larry Nance as much as the next guy. But fuck, he's not fixing this, man.
No, you're definitely right.
If everything goes well and they hit the over, like you've said here, it's because they're an absolutely amazing offense and everyone's healthy.
Yeah.
Which fun to root for, or rootable, for want of a better word.
Yeah, very rootable. Before we move on to the Northwest Division and your Denver Nuggets, let's take a quick break.
The deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the four-man weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the Pack of Basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favorite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Alright, so the Northwest Division, the Denver Nuggets, the over-under is set at 49.5. And for your favourite team, what have you done?
Over.
You've gone over. Wow, I love to see people going over on their teams.
Huge. We have a laugh.
Oh, we do have a laugh.
I said this about the Kings, very tongue-in-cheek, but I mean this dead set. This might be the best closing lineup in the whole entire NBA next season, with Jamal, KCP, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. A little bit New Orleans-y there, where it might be of course, they're going to be a top 1 offense, but they could be, bottom 15 defense. But Jokic has gotten better. Aaron Gordon makes up for a whole lot of things that he doesn't do. And it's actually now a little bit more about Aaron Gordon making up for Michael Porter Jr. instead of Jokic, which is a nice little change in conversation. I don't like trading away valuable regular season depth in Monty Morris, Will Barton, and Jermichael Green in a separate deal for they got Christian Braun. And they got Peyton Watson. I've killed him.
Christian fucking Braun.
And they got Peyton Watson, who, if he's good, he'll be good in 6 years. He's like Bruno Caboclo on steroids.
Oh my god. He's 2 years away from being 2 years away from being 2 years away.
But yeah, so giving up regular season depth, but I think that this closing / starting lineup is just going to carry them all the way and all the way home to a 50-plus win team. And also, I did my maths here in the Western Conference. I've gone over 50s for quite a few teams, and I'm making up for it with my unders elsewhere because, mathematically, someone has to lose games. I've still got that split of 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Was 7 and 7 with a push, but hey, Dante, you didn't want to hear that, so that's whatever. What have you done with this number on the Nuggets at 49.5?
I've gone over as well, and they're the fourth team that I think is going to be a top 4 seed.
This top 4 is pretty set, but whenever you think that in preseason, it never ends up
we're almost certainly going to get less than half of these right, as has been historical precedent. But this sounds like a good bet for this team to win 50 games. For an elite team, 50 games is actually not that high of a bar to clear. And bringing back, two guys who have all-star potential, who have been out for long enough that they should be able to make a smooth re-entry. Plus a dude who's a 2-time MVP, plus, a whole collection of role players. We've seen Aaron Gordon can be that connective tissue when everyone's there. KCP is an awesome addition. I think that this is going to be... How many games did they win last season?
48.
They won 48 games last season with the absolute fucking skeleton crew and Jokic, and now they're getting,
two really good players.
Two potential all-star level players.
And KCP.
Back. Well, and KCP. I mean, you lose Monty Morris, which hurts, but this is a team, given the skill set of their best player and the guy returning, Jamal Murray, they should be able to compensate for Monty Morris's spell as a lead ball handler. And KCP is an awesome fit next to a guy like Jokic. I'm over it. I'm confident.
Minnesota Timberwolves, the next team at 47.5. I have hit the over. What have you done?
I've gone under.
Why have you gone under on a team that employs Rudy Gobert, a guy who is addicted to regular season
He
wins?
habitually wins 48 games or more. Because when I'm, also like you, I've thought about how I think things are going to shake out. And I think that the group after the first four seeds is going to be comprised of Memphis, Dallas, New Orleans, and Minnesota. And I think Minnesota is probably the third best team out of those. I think potentially Dallas and definitely Memphis are going to be better. And just the way the cookie has crumbled, that all of those teams are not going to win 48 games.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be a team, two of those teams are going to win 46, 47, 48. Two of them are going to win 44, 45, 46. Like that's just how it's going to shake out. So I've gone under. We talked about earlier in the offseason when the trade happened, this is going to be like a regular season juggernaut and they're going to struggle in the playoffs. Like, okay, maybe both of those things are true. Maybe one of them's true. Maybe none of it's true. But I'm not necessarily convinced that it will work like right away with the fairly throwback / avant-garde forward and centre pairing that they're going with.
Yeah.
So this is again with like my Kings pick, kind of just a result of how the cookie crumbles elsewhere.
Yeah.
I do think they'll be good. I do think they'll make the playoffs, but
I understand that, but I also just think we said that we're going to be wrong with a few of these, and I think if we're going to be wrong and that top four isn't the top four that we know, I literally am just going to trust what we've seen work in the past with Rudy Gobert just making a defense excellent, and then they just always find their way to win 50 games. So if someone's going to crack into that top four or just be a fifth team who's going to win 50 plus games, I just trust the Frenchman to do it. And he's a meme, and the playoff struggles are real, but this is a regular season number. And I think next to him, obviously Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm doing quotes here, but the best shooting big man of all time, as he called himself. And Anthony Edwards, if he takes another leap, bang. And I've got another little dot point that I'm not in love with, but Tim Connolly always just manages to find just contributors out of nowhere. He'll just find some dude like Austin Rivers who was like, oh, he's out of the league. Oh, okay, no, he can actually play 10 minutes in the playoffs. That might be a Michael Maloney thing, so I'm just wondering what happens there. But then again, Chris Finch, also a good coach, so we will see. I'm quietly confident in this over, whether it be half a game or 12 games. I'm pretty confident.
It's the beautiful thing about the over-under is it's black and white. You're either over or you're under. All right, well, should we move on to the next team, which is the Portland Trailblazers?
Yeah, you go.
The over is set at 40.5. I've gone under, and this is my best bet.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
They're going to win less than 40 games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've gone over for reasons we've talked about in the past couple of weeks, because when Damian Lillard is healthy, he's an All-NBA player, and the last time we saw him healthy, go on, have a little comment.
No, I have no comment to make.
Your lips just quivered, and I could see your brain going, yeah, when was the last time he was healthy?
That's actually so cat. That's so cat.
Look, I see this team as a playoff lock.
Hold on, let me take your pulse. Are you okay?
They might be a 6 seed.
A 6 seed? Fucking hell, we must be watching two different NBAs.
Well, I just didn't watch the Portland Trailblazers last year because I know whatever the fuck Trenton
You
Watford
think
is.
that they have a chance to be better than
Yeah.
New Orleans,
Yeah.
Dallas, Minnesota, or
Yeah.
Memphis?
Damian Lillard might be the best player out of all those teams.
I mean, he might have been. You mentioned Ja Morant and Luka Doncic. He's probably not the best player out of all of those teams.
We'll see.
We will see. It's true, but I remain absolutely.
I am a little bit worried that I've got a few dogs in the race now.
What is going on at that farm if the dogs are in the horse?
I'm a little bit flustered after Lizzie's passing, obviously today being a National Day of Mourning.
Yeah. A true
Just
monarchist.
fucking archaic.
Can I tell you some things?
Yeah.
Damian Lillard has has been bad
Yeah.
or not healthy for the last 2 years.
No, 1 year.
No, 2
What are you
years.
talking about?
He was bad.
He was good in the playoffs.
He's now 32 years old.
That's so fine.
It's okay. It's okay. But it does introduce a level of doubt that we'll see him be as good as he has been. Like, he's probably not going to make All-NBA first team this season like he has in the past. It's not 2018 anymore. He's older. Anthony Simons has never been good playing next to Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
He thrived.
That's true, I'm laughing
He
with you.
thrived as like the guy, the ball handler, but now he's going to be moved off ball like he has been in the past into a role where he didn't thrive. Jeremy Grant has spent 2 seasons not contributing to winning basketball, and there's a high potential that he's not going to want to just fit back into his Denver and OKC role and be the energy rebounding four. So does that mean that a significant part of your offense is going through Jeremy Grant? Because if it does, that's bad. Yusuf Nurkic,
Your mate.
my mate, I mean, genuinely a few seasons ago, a top 5 center, and since then, probably not a top 20 center.
He gives me a little bit of concern because I don't even think he was a top 5 center back in the day.
Well, okay, agree to disagree. But then who are your key role players and reserves? It's Shaedon Sharpe,
Josh
it's
Hart.
Josh Hart, and it's Gary Payton.
Gary Payton.
Gary Payton, he of the one good NBA season. And the big contract, like, that never goes wrong. Like, with the guy who's had one good NBA season.
Especially to Portland.
And now you're paying him $10 million a year for a bigger role. Like, that always works out. Josh Hart has been wildly inconsistent in his minutes and quality of play as an NBA player. And Shaedon Sharpe, the last time he played basketball was in high school. So, throw all of those things together, and this team's not winning 40 games.
Look, let's just see. I'm actually excited to see what happens there because they've got good players, and if it doesn't go wrong,
Well, I just went through the whole fucking roster, and it actually appears that there's not that many of them.
if it doesn't go
Well,
it's injuries.
Nah, you're...
In my eyes, it is, and maybe we'll never see eye to eye and never agree on it. That'll be fun. That'll be fun to talk through.
Yeah.
The next 2 teams, do you want to do them together?
Yeah.
So we've got the Utah Jazz set at 26.5, and the Oklahoma City Thunder set at 26.5. I've got 1 dot point each, and the dot point is actually my answer, which is under for both of these. Incentive to lose.
Incentive to lose. I've heard that before. Where have I heard
Incentive to lose. Have it your way. Well, why do you think these 2 tanking teams are going under?
Well, I think mainly because both of them have a large incentive to lose. Would be my number. I mean, Utah's roster is already stripped of talent and will be even more so once Conley and Bogdanovic get traded.
Yeah.
And although he is my #personal GOAT, Colin Sexton is not good enough to lift them to 27 wins.
I think Zach Lowe had a really good thing where he was talking about it, where they're like, what if Utah's like sneaky good because like they're well coached. Obviously, they don't have Quinn Snyder, but they've brought in
Who the fuck's the coach?
Johnny Bryant. Get this, Donovan Mitchell's mate.
No way.
But they've just got, because they had to trade.
When you Google Utah coach, it comes up with the Utah college football team coach.
But when they had to trade away these guys, like
Will Hardy is the guy.
Johnny Bryant's the.
He's 34 years old.
Yeah. What's with you and age this episode? You just need a man. You need a man behind those coaching lapels.
Coaching lapels.
When they get mic'd up for one time a game. So I think it was Zach Lowe had this really good thing where he's like, but they've got a couple of good pieces like the Vanderbilts of the world and a bunch of rookies.
Shut up.
But then he's like, what if like Colin Sexton has like a breakout season where he like carries a team, and then whoever his guest was like, he's carried a team for the last 3 years. They won less than 30 games because he's not good at carrying teams. He is a stat guy, and he happened to have a major knee injury. So yeah, your personal GOAT who's like, what if he has another leap? It's like, my brother, he's had leaps the last 3 years. He's just jumping on the ground.
Wow, that was a terrible joke.
That was
No,
good.
I mean,
good
the
imagery.
pro-Sexton argument isn't that he's making another leap. It's just that his talents need to be leveraged in a situation where winning actually matters, which hasn't been the case before. Anyway, undo on both of these teams. For OKC, like, Chet is out, which means me spending the whole offseason saying, surely they can't rest everyone for 35 games at the end of the season is completely out the window. And SGA will develop muscle soreness around January, and we won't see him again. Same with Giddey. We're not going to see Chet all season. They're going to try and get that tall French dude and roll it back next season.
I would actually love to see a really sarcastic article from like the Oklahoma City plain dealer or something like that, where they're like, is it time to start being concerned about these soft tissue injuries? Should we like fire the OKC coaching staff because they can't manage these minor injuries? Bit of a bummer. I was really excited to see what Chet would actually do. We've been talking about him for like 3 years, and now he's got what's her name? Liz Frank.
We should end after this comment.
Oh, I've got one more thing to talk about. I got to finish up.
When he did this injury, when he had this injury, and it was diagnosed as a Liz Frank, that's how you say the word.
Yeah.
It's one word.
I only learnt this time as well.
It's Liz Frank. It's LASFRANC. Liz Frank.
Isn't it 2 words?
No.
Are you serious?
I'm dead set. Americans are saying it exactly how you said it.
One word.
He's come down with the dreaded Liz Frank, and it's like fucking like it's named after Liz Frank or something. And there's a real emphasis on the Z and a space before the F, and I'm like, my brother in Christ.
I actually thought it was named after a lady called Liz Frank.
Nah, it's definitely named after someone whose last name was Liz Frank.
Yeah, far out.
So he's probably a Frenchman.
That's crazy. Well, I can't believe I said that's crazy. So, with the closer, and that was a great closer. We should have kept that one. But obviously, the AFL Grand Final.
Named after Jacques Liz Frank de Saint-Martin, a French surgeon and gynecologist. Yeah.
All right, AFL Grand Finals on Saturday. What's your prediction? Oh, footy head.
Geelong's going to win, but fuck, that's shit for footy.
But how much?
30 points?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
That's shit for footy.
Yeah. But I'm going for Sydney, hardcore.
Really?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm going for Geelong.
You know that Jeremy Cameron plays for Geelong? There's no way I'm...
freak.
Yeah.
No, I'm going for Zach Tui.
Yeah, fair enough. Zach Tui's one of the more likeable cats.
There's just an old head. He calls guys cats. Let's end on that.
That's the finish up.
Speak to you next week. We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/get gambling off SBS with hyphens in between.